Welcome back to another explainer. Today, we're diving into a procedure that every Bombardier Q400 pilot absolutely needs burned into their muscle memory. We're talking about handling the flap power caution light. Look, when that amber light pops on, there's literally zero time for hesitation. So let's build a rock-solid mental framework for this together. Okay, let's look at our roadmap for today. We'll hit the Q400 flap power failure. Step 1, match and engage, the circuit breaker reset limits, wait times, and gate selection, and wrap up with the caution light decision tree. Starting with Section 1, the Q400 flap power failure. Picture this. You're in the cockpit, managing a critical phase of flight, and boom, an amber illumination catches your eye on the warning panel. It says, flap power. Now this specific caution light means one thing, a flap system failure. We aren't talking about a minor glitch here, it's a critical alert that your normal flap operation is compromised. When you see this light, it demands immediate, precise action from you, without skipping a single beat. There's no guesswork here, just pure protocol.
Moving to Section 2, Step 1, match and engage. The second that light registers in your brain, your hands gotta go to work.
The very first item on the checklist is simple, flap. Select to match flap indication. So what's that actually mean for you? It means your crucial first step is to look at your current flap indication gauge and physically move the flap selector lever to match whatever that gauge is currently reading. You're just syncing your physical controls up with the actual reality of the aircraft state.
But here's the absolute crucial point, straight from the manual. It's not enough to just loosely slide the lever. You absolutely must ensure the flap's lever release trigger is fully engaged in the appropriate flap gate. This is all about physical muscle memory and trigger discipline. You really want to feel that positive lock, because a sloppy lever placement is just going to complicate an already abnormal situation. Make sure it clicks firmly into place. Section 3. Circuit breaker reset limits. Once that lever is safely matched and locked, your focus shifts from the center console down to a physical anchor point, the left lower circuit breaker panel. Picture the cockpit right now. Reach down to that left lower panel and find breaker L7. That's your flaps cont, or flaps control, circuit breaker. The procedure is super specific here. Pull the L7 breaker out, wait, then push it back in. But the absolute magic and the safety of this procedure lies right in that middle step, the wait. 2 seconds. When you pull that L7 circuit breaker, do not immediately jam it back in. You have to wait a minimum of 2 seconds. To help lock this whole sequence in, I'm going to give you a memory trick, the 1-2-20 rule. This number 2 is the first piece of our trick. Pull the breaker, count 1,000, 2 1,000, and only then do you move on. And that brings us to the 1 in our 1-2-2 memory trick. The manual strictly states the flaps control CB is limited to 1 reset. Just 1. You don't sit there frantically cycling the breaker hoping for a miracle. You pull it, wait your 2 seconds minimum, and push it back in exactly 1 time. All right, Section 4. Wait times and gate selection. You've done your single circuit breaker reset. Now we enter the patience phase of the checklist. You can't just rush right back to manipulating the flaps.
This brings us to the final piece of our 1-2-2 rule. After pushing that breaker in, you gotta wait a strict minimum of 20 seconds. Let's quickly recap that beautifully simple memory trick. 1 single reset allowed. Pull the breaker and wait 2 seconds minimum. Push the breaker and wait 20 seconds minimum. 1-2-20. It perfectly maps out the timing constraints for you when the pressure's on.
Okay, so you've patiently waited your 20 seconds. The system has had time to cycle. Now the required action is to go back to your flap lever and select the nearest flap gate. How exactly do we do that? Well, the manual has 2 vital notes. First, increase or decrease the flap lever by exactly 1 flap setting. You're just testing the waters here, moving it to the very next nearest gate. Second, and you know this by now, ensure that flaps lever release trigger is fully engaged in the appropriate gate. We're doubling down on that trigger discipline. Lock it in securely. Section 5, the caution light decision tree. We've done the physical resets, and we've respected the wait times. Now we're at the final critical branching point of the entire procedure. Look back up at your warning panel. You gotta ask yourself, is the flap power caution light still on? Mentally verify the panel right now. Is it still glowing amber? Or did our 1-2-20 reset trick actually clear the fault? Your next move depends entirely on the answer to this one single question.
It's a perfect binary fork in the road. If the answer is yes, the light is still on, flap operation is just not available. Your flaps are going to stay frozen in their last selected position. But if the answer is no and the light is extinguished, congratulations, your system is functioning. Let's break down how we close out both of these scenarios.
If the light is yes, still on, your flap operation is definitively unavailable. You're done troubleshooting. The checklist dictates that you must immediately transition to the abnormal flap landing procedure, which is over on page 10.11 of your manual. You run that new checklist, and this specific flap power procedure comes to an end. But if the light is no longer on, you saved the system. To wrap up safely, you just select the flap lever to match the current flap indication once again to sync everything up, and from there on out, just use the flaps as required for the rest of your approach and landing. And boom, checklist complete. Let's do a quick final wrap-up using our memory trick, because visualizing this timeline constraint is absolutely everything. If that flap power light comes on in the Q400, think 1220. You're limited to exactly one circuit breaker reset. You pull the L7 breaker, wait 2 seconds minimum. You push it in, wait 20 seconds minimum before manipulating the flaps to the nearest gate. If you lock those 3 numbers in your head right alongside your trigger discipline, you completely own this procedure. So I'm going to leave you with this to ponder. Could you flawlessly execute the 122 rule and that strict trigger discipline right now, purely from memory, if that flap power caution light suddenly illuminated in your Q400 simulator? Challenge your rote memorization. Jump into the sim and put this mental framework to the ultimate test. Thanks for hanging out with me on this explainer. Stay focused out there, and I'll see you next time.